Air Force One, as you look right there, has just landed in Washington, D.C. following U.S. President Donald Trump's 5-day trip to Europe. The president is expected to get off that plane and make his way right to the White House, where high-stakes talks at this moment between U.S. and Mexican officials are heading into their third day. They're trying to reach a deal on migration at the border, and if they don't, Trump is expected to sign an executive order tonight that imposes tariffs on all Mexican imports, and that could come into effect as early as Monday. It could also put the new NAFTA in jeopardy. Earlier today, Trump was sounding optimistic, however. He tweeted earlier from the plane, "If we are able to make the deal with Mexico, and there is a good chance that we will, they will begin purchasing farm and agricultural products at very high levels, starting immediately. If we are unable to make the deal, Mexico will begin paying tariffs at the 5% level on Monday." So what happens if those tariffs take effect? Could progress on the new NAFTA completely unravel? And there is that plane deboarding right now. Agustin Barrios Gomez is a former Mexican congressman and now co-chair for North America of the Mexican Council on Foreign Relations. He joins us via Skype from Mexico City. Hi there, great to see you again.
Likewise.
Just letting our viewers know, we have a little bit of a split screen there. We are waiting for President Trump to head off of Air Force One and head to the White House. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But I just want to start with you. What have you been hearing about the status of those talks?
There's been cautious optimism. I think the main thing is that if on our end, I think the big announcement was the fact that the López Obrador administration acceded to sending 6,000 troops to the Guatemalan border. That's sort of a halfway measure to what the U.S. and Mexico would really be negotiating if this was like completely serious, which is a safe third country status. But right now, the Mexican administration is showing a political will by sending these troops to the border. And we've been seeing in Mexico, a lot of images that we hadn't seen for a while of federal police apprehending Central Americans in Mexico before they actually even get beyond Tapachula, which is sort of the border city of Chiapas with Guatemala.
Was it ever clear from your perspective the sort of criteria that Mexico had to meet in order to escape those tariffs? Like, has it ever been made clear by American officials, here's what you have to do where the migrant situation is concerned?
The short answer is no. The quick answer is that it's been pretty obvious that what the American administration wants to negotiate with Mexico is safe third country, what it has with Canada, which is this idea that once they do ask for refugee status in Mexico, they could not go ahead and do that in the United States. And that would reduce a significant amount of pressure, even of people coming into Mexico, let alone people going into the United States. But ideologically and for many different reasons, the Mexican government has been very strong in its refusal to negotiate safe third country, and so the halfway measure was to activate the federal police to pick up undocumented workers. And curiously enough, we heard for the first time President López Obrador say the word in Spanish "illegal," which is bizarre because in the Mexican political lexicon, you do not ever mention somebody as being illegal, and that was during the morning news conference yesterday. So there's been a little bit of a change of tone. You're seeing the federal police being activated to repatriate Central Americans, and you're seeing 6,000 new troops being sent to the border. Having said that, there's really not much more that the Mexican government can do. They have not spent behind creating a capacity to react. So this is pretty much the limit.
So how do you think it will go over? I mean, given I know there's always like a logistical calculation, but there's given that these negotiations are happening with President Trump, a very political one as well. Is what's being done enough, do you think, at this point? And obviously we don't know what he's going to say, but do you think politically it's palatable for him?
Well, no, of course. I mean, President Trump is a product that is made in Mexico. The reason he achieved.
And there he is. Sorry to interrupt you. There he is departing right now with his wife next to him.
Right. And so this is something that's been going on ever since that 16th of June 2015, when he announced his candidacy with, Mexican rapists and all of that. And so the way this plays out right now, because he mentioned in his tweet the possibility of agriculture sales to Mexico, I think that is about as big a white flag as we're going to get for the moment. Mexican officials are fairly optimistic that they've reached some sort of a deal, such that we could avoid that 5% on Monday.
How seriously was the threat of those tariffs being taken, and what would the impact of that be? And I should just say that they were initially going to be 5%, and then they would increase over time. That was the initial threat.
And not just over time. I mean, you're talking about increases to 25%.
Huge increase.
Before a year. So, I mean, it's catastrophic. The exports, high-level manufactured exports are right now the backbone of the Mexican economy, as was designed by the United States when it proposed NAFTA so many years ago. So it's not as if anything that happened was not a part of the plan. The thing is that the Americans changed in terms of what they expected from the deal. And so you're talking about the possibility of creating instability in Mexico. I mean, there's a big difference between a few 100,000 Central Americans and 130 million Mexicans that are permanently attached to the entire American Southwest. You have to remember that we already have the most legally crossed border on the planet. So 350 million border crossings, there's 330 ports of entry. Just try to imagine what a middle-income country of 130 million, which is much larger than these other countries that we've seen fall apart. You're playing with fire in this case, because it's really, really very dangerous to mess with that backbone of the Mexican economy.
I know it obviously all depends on what happens and what comes of these talks, but do you think there's a potential impact on NAFTA? We had the new ambassador here from Mexico to Canada on last week. He was insistent that things will proceed with ratification on NAFTA. Are you as convinced?
I don't think we're ever going to see USMCA be implemented, rather. I think it might be ratified by your parliament because, of course, there's a rush. It might be ratified by our Senate because, again, there's some sort of a rush. But I don't see there being that level of coordination. The Democrats, I don't see ever giving that win to President Trump. There is a possibility. Actually, no, I'm going to take that back. The only possibility that I see is with a second Trump. With a second term with respect to Donald Trump, and with Republican majorities in the House of Representatives and in the Senate in the United States, which is actually a bigger possibility than most people would like to think.
But you don't see anything in this term?
No, there's no way. I mean, if you look at the calendar, and especially with these tweets, I mean, it's basically impossible, both politically and even logistically these days. You're talking about everybody coming up against an election. The President Trump is actually going to start campaigning officially on the 18th of June. So I really don't see it happening.
And what do you see happening in Mexico? You said there is a bit of a rush there as well, just for ratification?
No, in Mexico, yes, because the ruling party wants. It has to debate whether it's better to pass it in the Senate on the Mexican side, and be in danger of having to review it again if the American Congress if the American Congress makes changes, then you'd have to go through another ratification process. But you have to weigh that against the possibility of creating some sort of a momentum if you do pass it. So it's one of those situations where you don't really know what's better, if you want to create momentum by passing it, or if you want to, or if that creates too much of a risk with respect to the possibility of there being changes and then having to review it again.
Lots of elements up in the air. Thank you so much, Mr. Barrios Gomez. Really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much, Basha.
Thanks to Agustin Barrios Gomez of the Mexican Council on Foreign Relations, also a former Mexican congressman. Meanwhile, Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland was asked today about the talks between the U.S. and Mexico and what the repercussions could be for Canada. Here's what she had to say.
We respect that this is a bilateral conversation between Mexico and the United States. Of course, our three countries have a close trilateral relationship too, because of our trilateral trade agreement. And so we're following these negotiations closely. We are in close touch with both the Mexicans and the Americans.
Hi, Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.